Hi. We are doing the AI and diversity series at the moment. We are currently kind of interviewing professionals in the industry. It's obviously a very exciting topic, but it's also one I think we need to potentially talk to people who are working in it a bit more openly and just really get that insight and understand actually why it's an important topic to talk about too. So just to introduce myself, my name is Anna Hennigan. My role is a recruitment consultant. I run the AI team here at Understanding Recruitment, and obviously working in kind of hiring and consulting in that space. I'm really happy to introduce the guest today. Yi is a research scientist in NLP at Vupla. I think I said that right. I think I've potentially.
Yeah, the German W.
Yes, a German W. And then also a founder of the Indie Game Studio with a PhD from UCL in computational linguistics. So a wealth of knowledge there. I'm really, really lucky to be speaking with you today. Obviously, I don't want to come on here and talk about stuff without kind of representing the actual statistics. So I've recently read an article in Forbes, which kind of outlines why is diversity so important in AI. And they've reported that the AI Now Institute of New York University said that there is essentially a diversity disaster, which has then resulted in flawed AI systems that not only perpetuate gender, but also racial biases. The report found that more than 80% of AI professionals are men and only 15% of AI researchers at Facebook and 10% of AI researchers at Google are women. So that's why it's important, and that's actually, showing the real life effects of this. So that's what we want to be talking about today. Kind of why are we not diverse and what are people's experiences, but why can this be such an exciting industry to join? So without further ado, and I'll stop talking, if you kind of want to introduce yourself and kind of how you got into this industry, but what you're up to at the moment.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot, Hannah, for the opportunity. Yeah, my name is Ye Tian, and I currently work as a research scientist at Blooper, working on conversational AI. Very exciting. And how I got into the industry, well, I did a PhD in linguistics, computational linguistics, many years ago, I think. So long. I finished in 2014. That's when I finished my PhD. And after that, I did a postdoc in Paris, working on dialogues and dialogue modeling, and started working on topics related to conversational AI. And then after my postdoc, so that was 3 years, I started working for Amazon Alexa. I was working on natural language generation for about 2 years. And that's kind of my first industry entry point. And then since then, I've worked for a couple of companies. I've worked for media tech research, and then some of my own projects, and currently with Flooper. That's like a short journey. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think that's potentially a couple of years ago we'd worked together as well.
Yeah.
And I have to say, it's from my side, because I do typically place males into the industry. It's always quite, not refreshing, but just exciting to know that, you're seeing women come up the ranks and just see the kind of transition there. So hopefully a small part in your journey as well. I guess you came from potentially not the most common entry point, because typically it's computer science, and obviously you did your PhD in computational linguistics, which has that crossover there. But did you think that you were always going to go into AI, or did you kind of have your career mapped in a different direction? How did that go for you?
And when I did my master's and even early stage of PhD, I haven't heard of AI. So that's how far away I was. I never thought about, I suppose also at the time, NLP is really at its infancy. NLP has, drastically developed in the last 5 years and 10 years ago, well, there's some NLP, but it's vastly different from now. So I had no idea. And also my master's was linguistics. It's not anything computational, it's linguistics. So, humanities is humanities you can go. And my PhD was, there is like a lot of data work, but it's to do with studying humans, and it was not building machines either. So I never thought about it before, actually. But like, I suppose dialogue, and that was like my postdoc was the first enter point when I became familiar with the industry and the conferences that I went to. I started going to conferences where there are a lot of people from computer science background. And that's when I realized, oh, maybe, there's something in that intersection that I can work on. And I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to work at Amazon Alexa, when my role was actually like a mix between NLP and linguistics, computational linguistics. So basically it was a surprising path for me as well.
Yeah, I think, I've spoken to a few people now who kind of initially thought, okay, I'm doing a language background or I'm doing something in the arts. So tech is very far away from me, but it's not that far away. And obviously with the NLP, there is so much that you can actually bring to the table that you've learned about and you've thought about, that potentially from a computer science background or a mathematics background, you don't have that knowledge in. So it's such useful information for the AI industry. I just think there are a lot of people who maybe don't put those pieces together and don't even consider it, because they're almost kind of already on track for their sort of arts career in whatever that may be. So I think that's really exciting, and hopefully anyone kind of coming up through the ranks. I know that you've got a few interns at the moment who are working with you that don't come from that background either. So it's really great to see that as well. And obviously you're a great example for that. In terms of work getting further into the tech industry, what did you find started to motivate you? What sort of challenges did you start to find more interesting as you kind of got further and further into tech, would you say?
So I think like working together with most of my colleagues don't have a linguistics background. Most of my colleagues have a a computer science or machine learning background. And it is, for me, of course, very exciting to be learning things continuously. I'd say I learn throughout my jobs as much as I've ever learned in any parts of my education period. So it's constantly learning. And also the field itself is, advancing so fast, and people who, came from that particular background would still be learning at a very fast pace. And so challenges, obviously, working without a computer science, like traditionally trained computer science background, working on projects that require coding and engineering on a daily basis, and with colleagues who are from the background, is challenging, but also exciting. But it's also interesting to see like how perspectives merge, like how say people who do a lot of people who are in linguistics see language, for example, from a slightly different point of view, because sometimes you can say, oh well, what's special about language? You can just approach language as any other phenomena that just need a lot of data. All you need is to get a lot of data, and you don't need to actually know much about how language works. You can just get the data, and then you can build a model in the same way you can build a model for, say, computer vision. But I think sometimes it's more about the type of questions that you ask. Like you would see the phenomena from a slightly different point of view. So as a little example, like if you ask a lot of people, say, how do you imagine a conversation works in terms of how it sounds like? People would probably say And also because of films and so on, a conversation is where one person speaks, the other person speaks, one person speaks, the other person speaks. That's how we naturally think what conversation sounds like. But in fact, that's not at all how it sounds like. So in natural conversations, there are lots of overlaps and people speaking at the same time, roughly in a very free conversation, face to face, especially around 40% of the utterances actually have overlap. That's something that if you didn't study it, you just wouldn't think like that. And you wouldn't ask the question of, well, it sounds odd, but why is it odd? Is it because of turn overlapping? Or it's because you wouldn't think, you wouldn't ask the question. So I suppose, so like having a perspective that is, say, a humanities or arts background, just give you different perspectives. And from that perspective, you might pose the question that someone from, say, computer science didn't realize is a question in the first place. And then together they can find a solution. So those things, I think it's very exciting. And we see this like right now with our interns who are from humanities background, working on data, working on language and NLP problems with our engineers. And the kind of perspective they bring in from a linguistics background, it's sometimes quite eye-opening. Yeah, so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds really cool. And I think that's what a lot of people feel that sometimes they're not getting in current roles, is they want to collaborate, they want to feel part of the team, and the whole kind of next level for them, they need to be able to learn from other people in that process. So individual work is brilliant and you need to be able to do that. But I think it's also really important to be in a sort of collaborative team where ideas are shared and, I kind of had done this before. What about if we tried this and then combined it with what you've done before? You often get a much better result, I think. So I think that's really cool. And I guess moving into, the diversity piece and the kind of tech scene as it stands right now, do you have, and forgive me if you don't, do you have any kind of insight from your experiences of why there are kind of less women, less, ethnicities in tech right now? What would you put that down to if you could, I guess?
So I think primarily because tech so far, because it's like, vastly quickly changing domain, it traditionally came from computer science and engineering is traditionally male dominant. And there's several reasons for that. Of course, that because society is shaped in a certain way, then that forms a expectation of what the norms is. But also one could argue there's certain affiliation or feeling about what engineering is for, because so there is some differences, biological differences. So for example, babies at 10 days old have shown slightly preferential looking differences in terms of the female babies prefer to look at more faces, and male babies would look at things not to do with objects. So there are obviously some differences in terms of that females feel more comfortable, or they're more interested in things to do with social interaction. While they can be as brilliant engineers at the same time, but they just have more interesting things with social interaction. Whereas there are more male that are more interested in interaction with machines. So because of that, so you see like quite equal distribution in sciences between female and female, but in engineering, there's a bigger difference, because engineering traditionally is seen as you're building a solution, you're interacting with machine. However, language, especially NLP, is an interesting thing that even though it's traditionally put in within the engineering domain, meaning interacting with the machines, but actually you're building something to interact with human. So that is where I think why this industry potentially, I think you will introduce and attracts and would benefit from more women and basically people from all diversity backgrounds, from ways of thinking and ethnicity and any aspect of diversity, right? Because it is not engineering where you're dealing with engineering to do with just machine. You are building something that interacts with human, and therefore interest in social interaction it's important, and you need to understand how social interaction works. And so I'd say the reason why it hasn't been so much is because it came from engineering, from computer science, and treating it as a pure, like a machine building system, like kind of perspective. But I do feel that there will be more women and people from different backgrounds, from arts, so on, getting into the industry because of the nature of what we're building. Because, if we're not actually interested in how people interact, then how can we build something that interacts with people?
Definitely. And I've actually not heard that, what you've said before. I've heard lots of, it's great because lots of people have different concepts of why is it kind of why do we have this huge lack of diversity in this industry? And I think what I'm thinking is every single time I speak to someone, I'm learning something new. And of course, I also work in a pretty much a male dominated industry. And so it's really interesting to see that crossover. I think from our perspective and from the recruitment perspective, sometimes what I've kind of heard from more senior female leaders in this industry is that women don't feel as though they can have a child or get married or kind of do this sort of job where you are kind of a 24/7 man or woman, where you're just on the phone, you've got to kind of deal with situations at all hours of the day. You can't really do that and also kind of maintain this life of a family, etc. So women often, according to some statistics, kind of quit this career as a recruitment consultant early because they can't even comprehend being able to do both. So I think it's just super interesting just understanding the sort of theories behind it, but I haven't heard that one with the as a baby you kind of have the kind of preferences as a male and a female, and it does make sense, of course, but yeah, super interesting. I guess in terms of the statistics I kind of mentioned in Forbes, would you say that's been your experience where, from the sort of industry roles that you've worked in, would you say you have felt maybe more as a minority in sort of a white male dominated industry, or has it been kind of completely different for you? It would just be interesting, I guess, to know.
Yeah, I would say there is definitely a gender difference. So like, because I shifted from linguistics more to NLP. So like just when I was in academia, the kind of conferences that I went to. So if I used to go to linguistics conferences where there are about half men, half women. And then when I go to NLP conferences or AI conferences, it's predominantly men. So that's definitely there's a difference. And then at work also, in all of the jobs I've been, female, women are the minority. But I do see a trend, like for example, right now with Flooper, and they have noticed this as well, that some companies maybe, or if you're just getting into NLP, maybe you don't realize that you might benefit from having a linguist or someone from linguistics background or a language background or humanities background. But then as you work into the problem and then you basically get into a point where you realize that, by sheer engineering of whatever data that I can get, it's not enough, that we do need insights of seeing language from a different way. And then that's when they naturally want to go and look for linguists who provide a different perspective. So maybe we're getting to a point where kind of the brute force way of building product has, been kind of matured to a point where then I think a lot of the fine tuning makes something to a different level, next level, will attract more people from arts background.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. And I think it's from when I started doing this about 4 years ago now, which is quite crazy to even think about, I have definitely noticed, a bit more of an openness and a bit more of, okay, we might actually benefit from this person, although it's not traditional and it's not, a software engineer or etc. that actually could be really an interesting fit for this team. And so I think as long as there's a bit more kind of openness and a willingness to accept different kind of academic backgrounds or, you know, internship backgrounds, etc., I think that will have a really positive effect. Are there any challenges that you've had to overcome and in this industry that you know that you have overcome, and how have you done that? I know that's putting you on the spot a little bit.
As an individual, or to be a woman, or
yeah, I guess to be like maybe initially like more of the outsider, you know, you coming from a different PhD background, or just purely the fact of being kind of in a male team where you're maybe one of 2 or 3 females. Have you ever had something, and you know, for anyone who might be having that right now, what would you say to kind of how to get through that?
I haven't. I mean, I feel like I've been really lucky. I feel like all the places have been, and people are very supportive, very open, and very humble as well. I personally have had a great experience being in very welcoming places that have been, so I haven't had any problems. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. That's what I want to hear. Because I think because we're becoming more and more aware, and obviously there are companies now, tech companies kind of creating reports on their gender diversity, or you know, any sort of element of diversity. There's become more of an awareness now, I feel, and people are trying to kind of rectify situations and just try and see what they can do to kind of, you know, make it more welcoming and, you know, not putting people off from the jump. But I think because there's kind of a lack of diversity, sometimes people are a bit nervous. Okay, am I going to be the only this person or this person in the team? It's actually very positive to hear someone go, okay, actually I've had an awesome time and I've really, really enjoyed it. And I think having that conversation, you know, obviously if there is stuff wrong, we definitely need to talk about it. But if there's stuff that's really good, it's also really important to kind of share those stories. Do you have like a highlight of your career so far that you've kind of said, okay, that is the really, really exciting thing that I've done? Or highlights?
You know, it's like, okay, so it's a bit like, you know, if you have a child, you just think, you know, like any moment of your child, you think this is the best moment, but then you say, oh, so far she's the cutest right now, and but you keep thinking that, right? And it's a bit like that. Like I said, I feel very grateful of my experiences, and that I've had so I wouldn't say there's highlights, because I think there's a lot of highlights or a lot of moments that I really enjoyed, and projects I've done, or people I've worked with. So I think the greatest is yet to come.
And what would you say to someone, I guess, who was like, okay, I'm coming from this background, I'm not even sure if I would be good enough or the right person for this role. If they're on a, you know, an advert page for jobs and they're thinking about it, what would you say to someone who's considering it? Is there any kind of things that you thought when you were initially looking to make that leap into sort of more NLP and your time at Amazon?
So when I got into the leap, I mean, when I applied, I didn't expect to get it at all, because I thought, you know, my background is so different. So but I was very fortunate to get it. And then since then, because at the same time I've been running like a seminar series, some teaching at UCL Linguistics. So in the linguistics department, I've been teaching NLP, running seminars there. And then so I've seen students who are from linguistics background, and a lot of female students there wanting to get into the industry. And I've been seeing, you know, like maybe what kind of ways can help them get into it. And I would say I noticed a difference, which is that traditional education, of course, is still very much valued, PhDs and masters from famous university, but the industries, and maybe I'll ask your experience about this. I feel personally, from a very limited view, that the industry is valuing self-education more and more. that if people have done online courses, even if they didn't do computer science. I actually have an intern who's working with me. She's studying history, but she's at the same time interested in NLP. So she took online courses in NLP and deep learning, machine learning, and then get herself like certificates, but also experience and knowledge, and then try to get to the industry. So I feel there are now more ways, even if you didn't come up traditional path, you can educate and take these courses and then do self projects. So you can show people that you can do, I can build an NLP application. I have done, say, Stanford machine learning course, an NLP course. And then I would say, get out and ask if people would like you to start with. You can ask for an internship, that you can do a project, and to show that you can do, but also you can learn. So I do feel it's getting more and more possible and welcoming, because of how there's many different ways for you to get the knowledge, not just from university. And what's your experience in this?
I would say when I started, I mean, we were looking, because it was still pretty, even recruiting in this field, that we were like one of 2 or 3 agencies who were doing AI recruitment at the time when I first began. And we were looking for, Oxford, Cambridge, UCL, Imperial, we're looking for the top worldwide universities, as they were considered in the academic field. So we were looking for those sorts of candidates, and those were really who I was completely chasing all the time. And obviously those people are still hugely valuable. That's not what I'm trying to say, but I think, people are recognizing there's only a certain amount of candidates like that exist. And, there are also lots of companies who want them. So you're in a huge battle for, about 1% of the industry, and you still got to fill your position. So I think people have realized that, let's see where else we can get value. And then they've seen people from lots of different backgrounds, self-starters who have, thought, I've studied this, but I'm really interested in this. I'm going to show you the extent to which I'm really interested. So I think there are a lot of people considering those sorts of candidates as well. I mean, I've spoken to Priscilla Boyd, who was recently on the vlog, and she was mentioning that now she's kind of taken academic qualifications out of the job specs, because she doesn't want to she wants people to just apply. And if they're the right person, and if they're a really motivated individual, that's what she's after, which I thought was a really cool thing to do. Yeah. And that's still something in most job specs, and I don't expect it to go away overnight. But, if you're that person and you haven't seen computer science on a job spec, that might be that one encouragement you need to click that apply button. So I think that's there's like a definite transition, and lots of more value seen in a more of a wider range of candidates, which I think then encourages, more diversity as well at the same time. But I always say to graduates, even from a computer science background or from a machine learning background, any sort of background, my main thing is go and try and find an internship in industry. That is something I always say. Just go out and, if I see one, I'll drop you a link over, and you can just go ahead and apply. Like, I'm more than happy to help. But that can be that you never know, you might get offered a full-time job there. You just don't know where that's going to lead. I think, I would say from my experience this is the time to enter the industry, because people are becoming, as it grows, people need to be more open and need to consider lots of other different profiles, and then they actually recognize the huge value that they're bringing from a less stereotypical background. So that's, I hope it's changing, and I feel like it is, and I feel like maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I probably wouldn't have had these conversations so openly, which I think in itself is showing, hopefully, that we're moving in the right direction. do you do anything where you currently are, when you're recruiting into your teams? Obviously, you've taken, I think we mentioned maybe 2 or 3 internships at the moment that you're
we have 4
hosting.
right now. Yeah.
Oh my God, wow. So
yeah.
Stuff like that. How have you done that, and how did you go about that kind of decision? Because that's really exciting as well.
So that was actually not as difficult as it might have sounded, because I was teaching at UCL. So I was teaching NLP, and so I felt like the students, we have basically like 2 sides who have the need that should meet, like the students from the linguistic students, but they've also done like programming courses and some statistics courses, but not as trained as computer science students, but still they have some background. They really want to get into the industry, such an exciting industry. And that I see companies who they would like to have people who have, especially like we do in conversational AI, like people to have some insights about language and dialogues. And then so I kind of bridged the two, just so it was like we were interviewing students from sorry. Okay, that's the part of working from home. Okay, sorry. Play with. Eva, shh. Can you? Okay, Eva, can you just and then go out, okay? Just go out. Okay. We can play with you later. Yeah, I'm just getting this. Okay. Tail with this. Okay, you can play with it. Okay, bye-bye. I'll show you. Okay, good. Just this in the way. Okay. Okay, sorry.
Then I'll edit that
out. Okay. I mean, if you want to leave a frame as like the naturalness, feel free to do that.
I mean, it's up to you. It's completely up to you.
It's fine. This is like
this is real life.
It's like a documentary of 2021, right? Like this is the reality of 2021.
I know, and this is, if we're working from home, this is actually what happens.
Yeah, so feel free to leave some frame.
Okay, as long as you're fine.
What was I saying? Yeah, okay. So this was like I like Vlooper would like to have some interns, since the students wants to have an opportunity. So we kind of, this was like more internal, like, so like we interviewed them, students who were interested applied from UCL, and then so through this way. But I absolutely think that because of my traditional my old background in linguistics, and I would personally and then I would understand the kind of like skills that maybe NLP companies would be interested in terms of what kind of linguistics knowledge and skills. And then I think, yeah, certainly a lot of linguistics students, I mean, that's a nice pool. And also see departments in universities of language courses is adding more education about NLP, about computational work. So I think that's a very nice, like promising and exciting pool of talents. And then, but also like to comment on what you said before, I definitely see that this kind of list of requirements, like, MC or PhD in computer science or machine learning, is one of those things that really puts off people, like not puts off, like scares candidates. Like a lot of my students would say, how do you get into it? I don't even qualify in terms of what, so and I would say, well, just apply anyway. You don't have anything to lose. And
I mean, it's such a funny thing, because I always say, what have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? Like, and sometimes I'll speak to a candidate and I'll be like, you've just told me what you're looking for moving forward, and then it completely matches up to this company, but then there'll be that sort of imposter syndrome that will come into play, and people be like, yeah, I'm not quite right for them. I don't think I'm the right person for them. Mm-hmm. And I know from working with that client that, yes, you are actually really perfect for them. But it's just, you see sometimes this list of requirements, and I've worked with a startup who are doing some really cool stuff, and we've just said, let's actually scrap the job spec. Let's just put some bullet points up of vaguely what you're looking for, the sort of person actually that you're looking for. And we've started like kind of where we've recruited hopefully 2 now as of today into that team without a job spec, because they kind of said to me, this is a personality. Obviously we kind of like these sort of skills roughly, but this is the sort of person we need as a startup. Someone who's really driven, motivated. So you can tell that a lot of the time over the phone with candidates, and it's worked really well. So hopefully that becomes more of a norm and less of a non-common thing in the industry.
But like you said, right, so like companies that go for this creative strategy wins because they tap into the talent pool that other people don't compete with. So by virtue of competition, I think people, like more and more companies would use this strategy because it makes sense.
And these are like very, very competitive candidates. I mean, are probably kind of snapped up by the tech giants, but it's just that that people like companies who aren't after just your PhD or your academics or your publications. People like companies who buy into you, not necessarily your CV. So I think actually, like you said, they win because they're showing from the jump, we're interested in you, and you're not just a number on our books. So I think hopefully I'll carry on, waving the flag and trying to get people to follow suit, but hopefully it will, become more of a norm. Is there anything, apart from that, you think that other companies or the industry as a whole could do just to encourage more people into kind of joining?
So apart from what you said, which I think it's a great point, and I really hope this would evolve. I think from an academic side, more educational, either universities, colleges, and courses should encourage more people to get into industry, to give this industry a try. And maybe there should be more events where you have little hackathons, like organized, but welcoming specifically different background people to get into competition and to try things. Because I think two sides needs to meet. The industry is becoming more welcoming, but the education needs to encourage people to say, yes, you can do it. And people really need people like you. And it's helpful to let them know so that they feel they're not intimidated by only the CS people. But so I feel like education side, there should be some change as well, some development.
I think that's a really interesting point. And sometimes, I went to Birmingham University and I did like American literature and history and politics as my bachelor's. But it was kind of like, okay, you're done now. And you're like, okay, what am I going to do? And obviously I'm in a job that I really enjoy, but for some people, you're spending quite a long time trying to after that figure out what's next. And potentially if I'd specialize in literature and then gone into a bit more of a linguistics background, who knows? I don't think I'd be very good at that at all because it wasn't my strong point. But people on my course, etc. You never know. So I think that's a really interesting thought, and hopefully if everyone works together, everyone wins, in my opinion. And I guess I will leave this on a I won't keep you too long because I know actually you're a very busy lady, but I do like to kind of ask, where do you think you'll be or hope to be in 10 years time in your career or in your life?
And interesting question. I tend to kind of experience things like you say, if you're a child getting to a park and then you might be eventually like you thought, oh, and there's a ride I want to go, but in the way you see this butterfly and just chase that butterfly for a bit and then you see that flower. So I tend to kind of more follow what comes in like immediately, or like the experience that comes, rather than having like a plan. But I would definitely I feel like I'm having a great time in the NLP AI industry, and I've always enjoyed teaching. So since my PhD, so I think those are the things that I would definitely like to keep developing. And this bridge between, like for me personally, the bridge between linguistics and NLP, between arts and sciences, it's always something that I'm always interested in. So I think I'll always be working on bridging these two sides. And then also personally, I have like, I'm developing games as well. And then I have a couple of games and some games that I thought in the pipeline that I want to develop. So again, this is like bridging like creativity with language, with visuals. And so yeah, I would say I would continue bridging things and create something in the process, have fun. And I would definitely love to help when I can, to help more say students, if I can still have the opportunity to teach them, to help them to get into the industry, and that I think that industry would benefit from having more people from all different backgrounds.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful, and lots of people won't do it, and it's just such a testament to your character. And you've had some major successes. I mean, if someone looked at your career, they'd be thinking, wow, this is amazing. So you haven't just done it for yourself and thought, well, I've done it and I've made it, so I'm going to just carry on doing me. You've carried on doing your lecturing, you've carried on teaching, you've carried on kind of just trying to, like you said, bridge those gaps between the arts and sciences, and how can you actually bring your skills that aren't traditionally accepted into this industry, how can they be super powerful? So yeah, it's really exciting. I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing, and at least you can look back and think, it wasn't just me I kind of brought into this, I brought lots of people too. And doing things on your own isn't the most exciting thing. It's having teams and groups
Definitely.
around you that go along the way with you.
Definitely.
So yeah.
And how do you like, a quick one, how do you envisage like how the industry would shape and change in terms of people in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I think a lot of my colleagues, obviously here we all specialize in different verticals, we call it. So some people just work on Java engineers, some people work on DevOps, some people work on front end, and the list goes on. I can't even begin to go. But I think for mine, it's still so new. So that's what's really exciting. I think in the next sort of 5 years, what I hope and what I really do want to push and drive just outside of my day-to-day role is more welcoming and less of a resistance from companies, but also academic institutions, on just letting people, if people are driven and they want to do it, just kind of being more accepting to the less, like we've said, stereotypical profiles that are 1 in a million almost. Because I don't know how this industry is going to grow if we only accept those sorts of individuals. So I think it is, and I think you've just got to communicate these things, and we've just got to be a lot more open with our conversations, I think, because it's not a hugely controversial issue, but it's not the most positive one right now to talk about, because we do have an issue that exists. But I think the more we talk about it, and the more we say, okay, what can we do to get more diverse candidates in? And I think with people publishing these reports and actually kind of saying we're really open to people of all different backgrounds, you don't need this, you don't need that, just apply if you're interested in us. I think that's what will happen, because we like we've kind of gone round in a circle. There's just not enough of that specific talent you're after. So if you want to have a 2-man band of a company, that's you can't really grow from there if it's just a very kind of set job description you're going to meet. I feel like I rambled a lot there, but I do think in 5 years' time there'll be less strict job requirements and hopefully a bit more of a wide-ranging workforce, where I truly believe like the statistics in Forbes speak for themselves, because there's biases within the AI, and that is because there's a very big portion of AI that is looked after by, you know, certain individuals, and the more that we kind of diversify those groups, that's actually going to be better for the AI and it's going to work better. So
Yeah.
I hope so. I think I do feel quite optimistic.
Me
but
too.
it needs everyone to get involved and everyone to kind of have a bit less resistance to it, I think.
Definitely.
Fingers
It's
crossed.
looking great. Future can only be better.
Yes, exactly. So go ahead and do what you want to do, and just apply. That's what I would say. Just apply, just have that conversation with that person, just ask for help, and help will be given, because most people want to see this industry flourish.
Very true.
Just get better, I think.
Very true.
Perfect.